Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you to all of you for coming in today. October, which is typically a season time for chartered accountants. You're here through an entire day learning about forensic audit. That is something that is commendable in itself. So thank you to all of you for coming for that. We've seen the sessions before, and I'm sure there is a good amount of information, knowledge, and various aspects about forensic audit that you have learned during the last few hours. The intent of this session is to tell you about the practical challenges that one faces while doing forensic audits. As everybody is aware, forensic is something that we can actually prove in a court of law. So whatever our conclusions are, or whatever our findings and observations are, unless and until they can be proved in a court of law without any shred of doubt, it does not carry any relevance. So on this note, we have designed this session, which is a panel discussion where we have three extremely knowledgeable people who've done forensic audits for a good number of years, telling you about what it is like in the practical world, what are the difficulties that we generally face. And the idea of this session is so that a lot of their knowledge is something that you can take home and use that towards executing your forensic audit assignments. So without any further ado, I will just begin this session. I hope everybody is comfortable with English and Hindi, and I hope the panelists also will be comfortable with that. Sir, I will be asking questions directly also, but if at any point in time you want to add something, please chime in. For the audience also, we will be having multiple rounds where you can ask questions to the panelists. A lot of us come with a lot of experience and do not know how that has to be applied, or how those situations have to be resolved. So the panel here today is for that. So with this brief setup, let me start. And the first most important issue that we generally face, and that is something that I have seen over a long period of time, is the first and major issue during an audit is that seeking cooperation of the people we are auditing, the auditees. Generally, in case of banks and NBFC mandates, are the borrowers. That, I think, is the biggest challenge that is there, because unless and until we do not get that amount of sufficient data or cooperation, we are unable to form or conclude on an opinion. So for this very broad query, I would like to pick the minds of Mahendra ji, who's the most experienced over here. Sir, how do you mitigate this in the real world? Because this is something I don't think anyone who has done a forensic audit will say the borrower was very cooperative. So how do you mitigate that, sir?
Good evening, friends. I mean, when you're talking from a forensic audit, specifically from the point of view banks and NBFCs, I think it's almost a last stage it comes, wherein banks have already failed all the measures, all the litigations was started by the banks are going on. So in case of banks, like always, it's going to be tough to get a cooperation or data from the borrower. I mean, I've been doing bank audit from last 25 years, and last 10 years, we have been going through various forensic reports from the big, well-known names, but you don't get any cooperation, you don't get any data from the borrower. In fact, when you send a mail to them also stating these are the facts, these are the preliminary observations of the forensic auditor, they won't reply. The reason being, they don't want to commit anything, so that after the forensic report is tabled on, based on that some actions are being taken, legal actions, they will always come out with a counter argument, or they will come out with something different set of documents. So from the borrowers, from the banks, when you're doing a forensic audit, from banks and NBFCs, you won't, in fact, 99% you will get a zero cooperation. So you'll have to totally rely on the data, what is available with the bank's file, or what you can get from the open source, or from like Click or alerts what have been generated and what has been stored by the bank. Otherwise, borrower won't cooperate in case of banks. At least I haven't seen in any of the cases where borrowers have come forward and given data. So for that, forensic auditors usually rely on the documentary evidence submitted since last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on the tenure of the loan, what were the documents, correspondence, what were the replies, what were the mails they've written. On that only we have to rely.
Thank you, Mahendra ji. Ritesh ji, if I would want your thoughts on this as well. because this, in my limited experience, this is the major hindrance, and every other issue is a probable follow-up issue on this. So how do you deal this? How do you deal with this in the real world?
Yeah, thank you. So, like sir said, that borrower are always reluctant to share details because they have already defaulted. So I'll just share the practical experience which I was involved in forensic audit of a big corporate who was a very big defaulter. So there was a forensic audit going on by some big audit firm. So actually we were helping the client. So I'm talking about from the other side.
From the management perspective.
Yeah. So that to give the practical perspective. So it is very important to set the tone at the top, which we generally talk about in common audit parlance. So whenever we are starting as a forensic auditor, so we have to have the buy-in of the promoter, which generally we gets, right?
Yeah.
But the problem comes in when we go deeper, when we discuss with their, 1 downs, 2 downs. So like sir mentioned, 7, 8 years old of documentary trails and all. So like Pallavi ma'am mentioned in her session that there are a lot of stories. So again, the challenge is you will have to, have to go through those stories. So it is up to you how to prepare that documentary trail. So it is very important in that aspect that we should not, give up and, try to deviate from what we are supposed to do. So like sir mentioned that whatever details are available in the open environment like MC and all, so that is something which we can get. But the other data, the operational aspects of the business, the data, very, base level data like vouchers or GRNs and all those things. And there are times when they simply say that there was a software we used to maintain. Right now we are not having access to that software. The data is, available in bits and parts and all those things. So always you will not, face the reluctance directly, but indirectly. Yes. So in that case, it is important, and at the same time, we have to keep in mind our time frame also. So it is very important to document all those things, and wherever, there is a break in the chain of events, we have to document them very, properly in our conclusion while reporting on that. So that will help, because ultimately you have to submit the report to the bank.
Yes. Thank you, Ritesh ji. And Mitesh ji, just your thoughts on this as to how and if we can get the borrowers to cooperate.
Yeah. See, as my two colleagues mentioned, in fact, not only borrower, even getting the data from the bank itself is a challenge. जो बैंक आपको दे रहा है काम, उससे खुद का क्लाइंट का डेटा लेना में चैलेंज आता है. बैंक पे आप जाएंगे, ब्रांच बोलेगा सर ये तो फाइल हैज़ बीन ट्रांसफर्ड टू द स्ट्रेस एसेट ब्रांच, और या तो डेटा इज़ इन द माल खाना. सो आप किसी को लड़के को साथ में भेज दीजिए, हमारा प्यून साथ में आएगा, आप डेटा निकलवा लीजिएगा. बस मैं बोला अभी यही रह गया है मैं बोला करना. So these kind of challenges you practically come across. Sometimes the bank is not having the data, or the bank has in last couple of years so many banks have gone into the mergers. So अगर आपका data देना बैंक या विजय बैंक में था and now it is Bank of Baroda, the old system will not have the old data, and getting a data will again take a time, because again they have to trace back to their own IT backup system. They have to get back the system. Sometimes. So what also challenges we face is normally even we try to ask, try to get the bank statement at least in the kind of a TXT format or the Excel format, so that the analysis become very much easier or comfortable. But again, you find the challenges that, either the hard copy or the scanned copy of the statements are available. So you have to start with whatever the data is available. So those kind of information challenges you will face not only. So borrower is definitely a challenge, because at the right from the day the declared the NPA starts, the quarrel between the lender and the borrower starts. तो वहाँ से वो उनकी जो लड़ाई है शुरू हो जाती है. तो आप रेयरली एक्सपेक्ट करेंगे कि मतलब समटाइम्स द बोरोर आया. एक केस में ऐसा था कि बोरोर था, अवेलेबल भी था, पर उसने ऐसा करके रीज़न दे दिया कि भाई मेरा ऑडिटर ही मर गया, और डेटा उसी के पास है। मैं बोला यार हद हो गई यार, तुम ऑडिटर को क्यों मार रहा है, मना ही कर देता, डेटा नहीं है। So these kind of information, मतलब you don't have anything, मतलब bank will tell you okay the borrower is ready to cooperate and this is what the communication, but again you have to document all those things. So you have to create a trail either in form of any written communication or email, because all this documentary, because all the forensic what we talk about is all based on the base of evidence and documents. So you have to ensure and that each and every communication with all the stakeholders, including your client, with the bank or an NBFC for whom you are working, even the communication with that is also very important. That you need to document those aspects also.
Thank you, Mitesh ji. I will just stick with you as we take the next question also. So what we've discussed about is obviously how we deal with limited cooperation, which is a normal phenomenon in forensic audit. Another commonly seen problem, Mitesh ji, is that a lot of times, the scope given by the bank is for a certain number of years. It can be last 3 years, 4 years. And while you're doing the forensic audit, we naturally realize that, whatever our issues are not issues that have come across in these last 2, 3, 4 years, probably they are spread across much before. So now in this, there are two challenges. Obviously, any forensic assignment, I've never seen an assignment that has gotten done before time. So the biggest problem always is ki time is exceeded, bankers are behind, their committees are behind, and so on and so forth. How do you, sir, strike a balance in between what is obviously our natural purpose of arriving at a conclusion, as against what is the scope available to us, time available to us, and if I have to say openly, the fees available to us as well. So how do we, how do we balance this scale?
To begin with, let me jump straight away with the commercial aspect, and then we come down to the work. Now, gradually from the day the forensic started, the fees aspect have gradually come down. We all know amongst the professional, it's an open thing. So it's nothing that, it's not known. The fees have gone down gradually. In many cases, we have seen that, yaar, itne mein koi forensics kaise kar sakta hai, matlab. We have seen that numbers also. So, to be frank enough, सर अब मैं क्या बोलूँ अभी फिगर्स, जैसे अभी लोग लिंक्डइन पे 1 रुपये में अगर स्टैट ऑडिट कर रहे हैं, सो फॉरेंसिक की क्या बात करूँ? हाँ सर, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट भी हम ही में से ना, मतलब दोज आर ऑल प्रोफेशनल कलीग्स, मतलब एवरीबडी इज इंडिविजुअली रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर हिमसेल्फ. Now I cannot blame somebody else for why he is quoting. So I have to ensure that मैं fees quote कर रहा हूँ, तो am I doing justice to myself or not? That is first thing we have to ensure. Rather than we cribbing about, okay fine यार ये 10,000 में काम लेके गया तो मैं 9.5 करूँगा, क्यों सर? We should not go into that practice. We have to do justice not only to the profession, but you have to do justice to your own self. So right now, so initially you have to see what is the scope given to us. You have to see whether the timelines and whatever the fees you are quoted, are you going to do that within the time frame? So if you think that कि ये 2 ही साल का मुझे पीरियड दिया है, तो क्या मैं अपने आप से 3 साल में घुसूँ क्या? सो आप देख लीजिए फर्स्ट वेदर आपके लिए फिजिबल है कि नहीं, बिकॉज क्लाइंट आपको उसकी एक एक्स्ट्रा फीस नहीं देने वाला है. ठीक है, अगर आप कर रहे हैं, सो यू आर एक्सटेंडिंग योर ओन स्कोप, यू आर एक्सटेंडिंग योर ओन लायबिलिटी. सो इवन टुमारो इफ यू इन योर ओन रिपोर्ट यू से दैट I have extended this period, so you have to ensure that you cover those period properly in your reporting part as well, because then you will be asked, since you have already gone through all those details, so whether why have you not, if you have missed out any aspect, then it should not happen that boomerang should come back to you and that why you have ignored this aspect and why you have. So you have to make sure that your engagement is absolutely restricted within the scope. If you are going beyond the scope, then put limitation that I have covered only this aspect of the part. So you have to balance this strike, whatever with the commercial, the engagement are there, and make sure if client is ready to give some extra for the work you are going beyond that, you have to try to make a communication with them and try to see that, you have to convince them कि in this 2 years शायद conclusion नहीं आएगा, and practically आपको 1-2 साल जाना पड़ेगा, तब जाके conclusion मिलेगा, and if clients agrees, go ahead with that. Yeah. That is what the practical we are all seeing nowadays, na sir? Challenges.
Be limited to my scope, mandate engagement mandate given to me. I should not go beyond. See, if I've been given for 4 years, I should strictly, religiously stick to the 4 years and come to a conclusion based on that. And in fact, if I find the findings, okay, probably this has got linked to the previous year, I have to communicate with the auditee and tell him you have to increase the scope because there might be a chances. Otherwise, I should stick to my scope already because of forensic audits are becoming costly because there is always a howsoever meticulously you plan your time frame, it's always going to be overrun because the data reliability, data extraction, using experts is always going to be. We'll have to, as a professional, we'll have to rely on a third party. Whatever estimation in the fees we have taken for the data extraction or legal experts is always going to be overrun. So we'll have to be very cautious. We'll have to be stick to our time frame. See, basically, I mean, as far as our institute is concerned, like we have got a self-regulatory mechanism, wherein suppose if I quote X price, for any, it's not about forensic, I'm talking about audit also, for assignment also. If I quote a X price, tomorrow institute has got a power to ask me, to give me the working basis of arriving at X price.
Yeah. I will. Yeah. 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 Yes, sir. I will address. Sir, I think the reason for putting this right up front in the discussion is because everybody, I think, unanimously agrees that the skill set required and as against that, the commensurate remuneration we are receiving for these assignments are not at all in sync. Everybody, I think, agrees with that. Now, this is my personal view and I do not speak on behalf of the institute, sir. So the issue lies in how commercials is one part of the challenge. The bigger part, I believe, is, sir, is that if, say, for example, Mahendra ji and Mitesh ji and Ritesh ji's firms are there who have reached certain levels and have decided that, okay, we'll pick certain assignments with certain fees. Sir, for the good of it or for the bad of it, there are a lot of people who have just started out on their forensic audit journey. For them, having that experience of X number of forensic audits done is very much more important to reach the level of, say, where Mahendra ji, Ritesh ji, Mitesh ji have reached. So this is the practical reality, sir. This is the reality even in case of bank audits. From becoming a level 4 to a level 1 firm is a very big challenge, very uphill task. Nobody will ever come and say that, we have made some money or done justice to the efforts that we have done in this process. But unfortunately, sir, that is how it is. So the larger internal evaluation, if you ask me honestly, do I think this will ever improve? I do not think so. The larger evaluation, sir, we will have to do probably every year, every 6 months, is where I was in this industry as a ranking or my credentials and how have I improved that, and then can I command a certain amount of premium that is there. The second part of the story is, sir, that yeah.
For this forensic, you cannot have a benchmarking fees because that will depend on the uh, sort of data you have to use, sort of experts you are going to rely. So for this, there cannot be benchmarking. At the most, benchmarking could be what is my scope, what are my time periods I'm going to involve, what are the professionals I'm going to involve. Based on that only you can do a benchmark, or you can quote the fees. Institute cannot do it. Based on exposure, it cannot be done, sir. Based on exposure, because even if suppose there's a fees for 100 crores so much, 100 crore could be into 3 transactions, and 100 crores could be in a multiple of how many?
Ankush bhai raises a very, very pertinent question.
I mean, let's not get.
Yes,
But
I agree,
basically,
I agree.
I appreciate the point. There has to be benchmarking, but in
No, fair. Sir, fair enough, and 100% point validly taken, and everybody in the room will appreciate if all of us can also benefit from this. And this is a pain point, as everybody agrees. But let us see if, for example, how and when, if we can raise these voices, we definitely will. Coming to Ritesh ji, sir, on just this scope part.
Hello.
Sir, on this scope part, as I said before, I've never seen an assignment that is gotten done before time. Neither have I ever seen an assignment where I've said, "Arey yaar, meko jo milna tha, ek baar mein mil gaya." Factually, sir, we are all professionals, resources and everything. How do you, or what would be your practical suggestion, or something that you're doing in-house that you would recommend to people that at least, to make justice to the scope that is there, at least start with these 2-3 practices. Anything that you feel can benefit everyone.
Yeah. So to answer the question, the answer lies in the previous 3 sessions only. So all the tools, techniques which we have discussed about during the day. So definitely, like you rightly mentioned, that what are our in-house practices which we have established, not only for forensic audit, but for all other type of audits which we follow. So to answer his question again, like what he correctly asked is the level of resources we are using, the quality of resources we are using, that is what is adding our cost, right? We are not getting that much, but the level of resources. So apart from resources, the manpower, what other resources we are having, right? I'll go from the basics of checklists, right? Use of AI, which everybody would agree right now. So all these tools, techniques, like we discussed Benford's law and all those things, and the sampling techniques. So we have to actually, save time in terms to limit our efforts, the cost, and still come up with the required quality in the forensic audit report. So definitely, like in the morning, Ankush ji mentioned that when he peer reviewed the Nikun sir's firm, he found out that they have excellent documentation process, technology. Same way, we have to have technology-based checklists, right, which are updated, and also have the tools like Idea software and other, whoever can afford, definitely. So all these things will, help in limiting our time, our efforts, and still come up with the quality in the forensic audit reports. And
Sir, the idea, sir, is, sir, I just to answer this specific point, sir, as chartered accountants, we are extreme, and I use this in other sessions that I take. Sir, as chartered accountants, we are experts in terms of financial planning, forecasting, budgeting, so on and so forth. If a person will come to you and say that, I want to set up a business, आप बोलोगे यार 2-3 करोड़ का capital cost लगेगा, 50-60 लाख का आपको working capital लगेगा, फिर आपके आगे आपका ये ROI आएगा. Right? This would be a suggestion when it comes. Sir, I just want to open this question to you and the room in general, sir. Sir, what have we invested in our practice? The question is that. we are ourselves, not just technologically. I go to forums and sir, I ask the same question and I ask them, how many times does your team have an internal training that is done? People say, यार जब एक ITR के time पे, एक tax audit के time पे, एक stat audit के time पे. So I'm just saying the investment need not be monetarily, but there is a good amount of time, process, investment that needs to be done. And sir, that is something that we cannot shy away from. We cannot say that, we want to compete with the best, but we don't want to think like or invest like the best. So that is, a commercial, how the world works. But just because you spoke about investment, sir, a client comes to you and says, आप मेरा ROI और ये calculate करो, आप ही उनको बताओगे इतना invest करना चाहिए. I'll open this question to everyone in the room और मैं बोलूँगा, आपने आपकी balance sheet budget की है क्या ये साल के लिए? और एक भी CA बोलेगा, नहीं यार मैंने तो ऐसा नहीं सोचा कि मेरे को इतना revenue achieve करना है, मेरा इतना खर्चा होगा. So being the most brilliant financial minds, unfortunately, we don't use that acumen for ourselves. So just for the investment, I thought I'll add my points here. Thank you, sir. Now coming, we've spoken about the scope, we've spoken about the cooperation also. We've had Pallavi ma'am's session just before this. One thing I genuinely believe, or I have seen in my limited experience, is that most of our reports are reports that come with obviously disclaimers, but the reports are not conclusive. And the reports are not conclusive because the data that we wanted to receive has not been received. And the conclusions that should have been arrived on because of lack of data, clarity, and other things have not been able to do. Now, after this question, I'll go on to the legal aspect also, but just a precursor to that for me is, how do we ensure, although this is not our responsibility as such, but because we are doing forensic audits, sir, how do we, and we do not have search and seizure powers, right? We are not an investigative authority. We have to solely rely on cooperation from all the interested parties that are possible. How do we come up, and it ties up with previous questions also, but more specifically, sir, how does insufficient documentation, which is a very common factor as we've all agreed, Mahendra ji, if you can throw light, how that can be improved upon so that our forensic audit report can be one with a conclusion that can be taken in a court of law.
Yeah. See, first of all, like as an auditor or as a forensic auditor, I'm going to mention in my report whatever documents or evidence I'm able to gather through the process of forensic audit, either from the auditee or from third party. So as an auditor or as a forensic expert, I won't be able to come to a conclusion and tell that there was a fraud or happening of 100 crores only. It cannot be 98 or it cannot be 101. So my report cannot, even my standard doesn't permit me. My institute standard doesn't permit me to give a conclusive finding, because whatever documents or evidence I'm relying on, it might happen tomorrow in the court of law. They may not be sustainable. Or there might be a certain set of documents which were never produced or which were never available to me. So as an auditor, I've got a limitation scope, limited documents to come to a conclusion. Yeah, there can be a conclusion based on if there's a management is appointing me to carry out a fraud analysis in that factory, at that store, inventory, warehousing, then there can be, because I will have a total gambit of documents starting from A to Z. There I do come to a conclusion and tell there has been a pilferage, there has been a theft of so much amount of, so who are the persons concerned, or these are the 4 documents or 3 documents which are not in sync. But if you're talking from the fraud investigation, from the bank's or third party investigation, I would never come, and we should never come to a conclusion. We can present the facts based on documents and evidence available to me. And even that too, a situation might arise wherein a certain evidence which I am relying on, which may not be tenable as a evidence in a court of law. So my report can never be a conclusive to a third party. Yeah, if appointed by management, where I get 100% cooperation from the management, my report can come to a conclusion.
No, Mahendra ji, really thank you for that insight. Mitesh ji, if I just want to ask on this again, is that we obviously understand the report should not be conclusive as such. But at the end of the day, the banker is appointing you with an agenda of, if not coming to a conclusion, but bringing facts to light. And obviously, because of the inherent limitations and inherent conflict and non-cooperation, that is something that gets very difficult always. How do we just, in this scenario, my question around is, because we can only control the audit procedures that we have. What would be audit procedures that you use as alternate audit procedures? Because cooperation is something that we don't generally expect. That can ensure, because the bankers at the end of the day also will come and, if not question you, but they will come and still ask you as to, why this has been that. And when this went up in the committee, this was not discussed upon. Our advocates have said X, Y, Z. So, a lot of those things also happen after our report has been given. So how do you tackle this challenge?
So this is one of the very key aspect, because the reporting, the ultimate forensic audit, कोई भी client bank है, वो आपसे क्यों करवा रहा है? Because as per he has to follow the RBI mechanism, right? The regulator has उनको बोला है, and the fraud committee उनकी internal होती है. So they will order the bank or the NBFC, so please get this forensic audit done and come to a conclusion whether we have to classify this account as fraud or not. So for this aspect, they need to get this forensic audit done. And again they appoint the auditor. The initial discussion and the scope of any banker, you will see that they will mention you, please identify and try to see whether there is an element of fraud or not. Now, as Mahendra bhai mentioned, and as we also practically discussed, that lot of things, the challenges are with the data. Although there is a challenges with the data, but let me tell you, understand, obviously, जो अकाउंट NPA हुआ है, 99% आपको 10 में से 7 केस ऐसे मिलेंगे जहाँ पे definitely there will be some practical issues which you will apparently find. There will be either some financial related, you will find some abnormalities, you will definitely find. There will be some RPT related transactions which apparently they might have not disclosed as a RPT, but there is a RPT transaction. So all those entities you have to look as an auditor while doing the analysis. You will might come across certain creditors which, or data which they have shown. There are certain local addresses which we also try to find out, where from the particular perspective, and then we try to bring some aspect to the conclusion. You will not get the exact conclusion, but you will get definitely some aspect of the conclusion on some part of the transaction which may be very much material for that company, or which may have resulted that into the account going into NPA. So all those instances and evidence, if you bring along with the report, that definitely helps the lender, to initially when they issue a show cause notice to the borrower that why your account should not be classified as fraud on the reason of A, B, C. So these circumstantial evidences do help them, the lender, to form an opinion. So because of we may not be in a position to give our opinion, but definitely this evidence will definitely help the, in the court of law to throw out some light in some direction, how was the, the approach or the nature, how the company was following the good corporate governance. So these kind of issue will definitely bring across. Also, one fact one has to ensure that please avoid any personal biases in the report. Never have any kind of personal comment about any individual person. Try to avoid that, unless you have very specific evidence and apparent on record it is that there was an apparent prudent was not being followed, but try to avoid that. Don't make any kind of a personal comment individually on any personal. That is what my suggestion would be.
Thank you, Mitesh ji. And Ritesh ji, just from what he has said, just a limitation that I understand that happens in every audit and more so in forensic audit is that obviously we have access to accounts of only a single entity. In most cases, we don't have access of accounts to the entire group entities. And obviously, as we are aware in a lot of financial crimes, if I have to call that, is that there are multiple entities and layers that are used. This, obviously, though we feel that the audit has been done and certain amount has been shown how it has to be shown, but when we're talking about the use of funds or a circular rotation of funds of sorts, how do you practically tackle this? Because we do not have access to those accounts. and our balance sheets or our public documents only disclose a certain amount of data, unless and until they say, for example, are a related party, that data does not come to the fore. So I want to just pick your brains on how practically this is done, because this, I think everybody somewhere or the other faces a challenge that an X amount of fund had come in and it had gone to a Y party for whatever reasons are mentioned in the financials. But as forensic auditors, because the scope is limiting us, and obviously cooperation or availability of data is limiting us, how is this taken into consideration just in a practical scenario?
Yeah. So the same thing again, Pallavi ma'am has shown in her presentation. This is called undisclosed related party. So routing the transactions through the undisclosed related party. So first effort definitely would be, you know, to try and unearth all those links and consensus between the web of the movement of the funds, which like you mentioned is difficult because we do not have right and or access to the documents or the financials of the related party. One of the aspect is definitely that we can actually go to the bank and you know, based on certain conclusive evidence, we can say, and request them that to give us the additional rights to get a probe into the other entities also, which is practically very difficult because they have to follow the procedure again, because when it's a separate different legal entity, then there is a big process. But otherwise, like you rightly mentioned, in our reporting, we have to, we can actually highlight the transactions which are leading to particular certain accounts or entities, but there is no clarity beyond that. So we can mention with the you know, disclaimers that beyond this, it is not in our scope of work, right? But this can be further investigated. So this, up to this level, it is it will work in favor of while we are reporting.
Okay, thank you so much,
Further
Ritesh.
to
Mahendra
add-
ji, please.
Yeah, further to add, like if I've been appointed by banks, then in case of if I come to know the funds are traveling to other banks, the banks sometimes do ask the other banks to give a data. They do share in case if I mean they feel it's a fraud or it's a consortium account. Or otherwise the option is like you go to a MCA site, pull out those companies if they are MCA or LLP, then only that the data is publicly available. Pull out those balance sheets and data, track the shareholders and go to the ultimate beneficiary, UB. But in case if it's a partnership or non-corporate entities, then it's really become difficult. I mean, there's a stop to it. And I mean, we have seen at many places, like in case of private companies where there is no governance standards, many of the transactions entered with related parties are also not disclosed as the related parties. So it becomes a real good challenge. In case of listed companies, because of independent directors and good governance, to certain extent, the RPT transactions are put to the audit committee and board. But in private companies, even the RPT transactions are not reported as a RPT. So it's going to be a challenge.
Oh, thank you so much, Mahendra ji. Now we've spoken a little about information, how do we mitigate that information. Sir, in my opinion, the second most important challenge that we face is a legal challenge in terms of the report. Now these challenges can be multiple, obviously, if our report is legally tenable or not. Second, if due process was followed or not. And there are multiple legalities that a forensic auditor, and especially in the case of a bank or an NBFC mandate that is there, what do you believe, you know, what is the process they should know in advance? Say, for example, how there is a committee and then there's an opportunity of being heard given to the borrower and all of those. So, Mahendra ji, what do you believe is something that forensic auditors should know, you know, even though this is not in our scope as such, but this is so intertwined, or dealing with legal experts is also so intertwined in a forensic audit, is that what do you believe is something that the you know, members here should know as a precursor, that you know, these are things that you should know?
I think first and foremost for this, first of all, my mandate or engagement terms have to be very clear. Once I get my engagement terms, then depending on that, I should employ legal experts so that whatever documents or evidence I'm relying on, that can be used and can be relied on. Data analytic experts where I'm going to extract the data. So they are going to be extracted from those data driven, and those data are tempered. So all these legal aspects we'll have to, as an auditor, I'm good with the figures, I'm good with the reconciliation, I'm good with the tracing. But from legal point of view, I got to have a legal expert who can help me out. Okay, these are the legally documents which you can rely on.
Ritesh, if you can.
Otherwise, I've seen like our report going as an fraud inspection of fraud reports being examined by court of law, and due to non-availability of legal advice and legal evidence which is required from the law point of view, they are not there, so reports are not at all used.
Ritesh, please.
Yeah. So I'll again give a very practical example for this, which I had experienced. Like sir mentioned that we cannot go beyond certain extent. So what happened in that assignment was that all the siphoning of funds was happening through EPC contractor. So the loan was taken 10 years back. Now the forensic audit is happening. So all the construction work, all the projects, EPCs were handling, right? So there was no direct nexus between the two entities because there was no, direct link. You cannot prove them as a related party. But what was happening is like purchase of basic things like purchase of cement, steel, where, volume of money is going, right? So instead of the EPC contractor purchasing, we are purchasing the material at very higher rate. We can just check on the indexes that time what were the rates. But the basic explanation which comes after our findings is that we did not have any control on their specific item-wise procurement because we gave them the contract on the L1 basis. So overall, they were L1, they were executing the project at my site. It was a heavy industry. So the response itself, gives you the lead that there was definitely, the siphoning of funds were happening. So definitely we can put our point, tracing all the activities, linking the activities, what was the rate of procurement, what was the open market rate at that time, what was the volume, and then maybe we can substantiate, go into deep and further, like we did the analysis of the vehicles which were coming in, which is very common. I think everybody would agree. Yes. The vehicle numbers, right? 16 tons of cement is coming on a bike. So actually, we look at all these things like examples. But we have seen this practically in a forensic audit. Steel, cement, all those things. But why this is happening? Because we got the data. That is the main challenge. Whether we will be able to put our hands on that level of data or not is the biggest challenge. But if you get that level of data and you go that deeper and you put this, in a chain of events in your report, then it is more than conclusive to, prove that the other entities are also used to siphon off the funds.
Thank you. Mitesh, on the same point itself, also if, in your experience, what is something that we should know from a legal front or while dealing with, as Mahendra ji said, we should have a legal expert or someone in-house. How is that handled practically while, executing assignments?
So we have to again go back to the basic, we have to understand what is forensic audit. Forensic audit is all about evidence which can be proved before the court of law. So initially his understanding is what is the evidence. We have to understand the Evidence Act. We have to understand what can be proved as an evidence. Evidence could be written, it could be oral also, provided it is given before some competent authority. So all this knowledge, basic knowledge, is not now even, as state auditor, the regulator expect, under the NOCLAR, that we should be aware of all the basics law also. So similarly here also, while applying lot of analytical tools, so you obviously when you are relying or using IT aspect, so you should understand how the IT Act sustains, how the IT Act justifies the, the data, the content, the documentation, how that can be proved before the evidence. So you should understand the evidence should be such a manner, where tomorrow it should be possible that you can extract those things and whether it can be given before the court of law. So it should not happen that practically you say that there is an evidence, but I cannot take it before the court of law. So if you are not in a position to take it before the court of law, so the value of evidence will be almost zero. So that will be the benefit to the opposite party, and he will make your report weaker. So you have to ensure that when you are drafting the report, whatever the things you are writing in the report, it is backed by an evidence, and evidence should be such that it has been tested by alternative methods also, and where then you can say that okay, fine, this evidence is very much conclusive, where you can have and wherever the legal opinion is required, please don't hesitate to have a legal opinion. Ensure that wherever whatever the comments you are writing, it has cross verification. It is not what you are writing is not very illegal. It is within the accounting standard. Now after 2023, the forensic auditing standards are also mandatory. So earlier, before that, we were not governed by the institute standards, So that was, so one aspect was not covering, although other aspect we were covered. But now again, we will be also regulated by our institute also. If on any of the forensic audit documentation part we have not relied or we have not followed properly, because again in the report also, so when we start with the report, you give the title, you give the scope, you talk about you have to talk about the method, how you have gathered the evidences also. You have to ensure that you have do it in such a mechanical way and proper way where you have documented all those things. Even you have to ensure that you also communicate with the borrower. Please, I will again tell you, even though the borrower, you say non-cooperative, do write him a letter, let him ignore the letter, but make sure you make it an evidence that you try to reach out to him, even for the sake of document. Even if there is something observation where you can put it in a questionnaire form and you can put it, okay sir, I have this query and in absence of your reply, maybe I have to convert it in a negative manner. So kindly if you can provide me your cooperation and if you can provide me some supporting. So all this circumstantial evidence will do help you to give your better drafting report, because all this report, and make sure that you have something delivery, reports or letters if you have courier delivery evidence. All those things are available with you. This will make your report more legally sustainable. Yeah.
Mitesh ji, thank you so much for that. Talking about legality and forensic audits, because typically statutory audits and other audits are majorly done where we are appointed by the auditees themselves. In this case, obviously, we are not appointed by the auditees, and the ramifications of any forensic audit report are much higher. There is also, if I have to say it in a way, there is also a pressure or an undue pressure that probably sometimes is exerted upon the forensic auditors, where there are certain people that will reach out to you and obviously ask you to amend the report in a certain way. Or else there are direct conflicts also that happen where the borrower themselves will directly try to file a case against you, a writ petition against you, or they might try to take you to the disciplinary committee of ICAI. While we understand that we are following our standards and we are doing the job in an unbiased manner, but on this, Mahendra ji, this is a real challenge, and especially the challenge goes bigger when the quantum involved is much higher. So how do we as forensic auditors obviously look after ourselves, though by statute we are protected, and I'm sure nobody can legally come into a position and do anything, but the process is the punishment. So how do we take care of that?
I think this should be the first point when you take up an assignment. Okay, if I do an assignment of this sort, and tomorrow if there's a negative comment, these are the consequences I'll have to face. I'll be made a party to the legal case. Irrespective, management is going to be there, banks are going to be there. But as an expert, even I'm going to be a party to it. If the cases are going to be with CBI or ED, I'll be the first person to be called by the CBI and ED. Forget the management, forget the bankers. First will be the forensic auditor. So based on this, these are the evidence you have collected, or these are the facts you have mentioned. What are the evidence? So we should be able to tell them. And the second question will be, if so much is there, then why you not come to a conclusion that fraud was of so much amount? I mean, the investigation authorities would always ask, okay, where is the conclusion? What is the amount you have arrived at? So even if we have not calculated, but wherever we are given a red flags, okay, these are the red flags and these are the documents. They are going to investigate, they are going to tell us, and that's going to be a beginning of few of the visits. We'll have to do it. So I mean, looking at the assignment, taking up an assignment, you have to be very clear that these are the hurdles I'm going to face. So if we are ready to face these hurdles, then I think you have to take it. Yeah, as far as institute disciplinary action is concerned, I think institute knows the mechanism, so there's no issue. But from regulatory CBI point of view or investigation, getting authorities, we are going to be party to it, and legal case, we are going to be party. So you have to be ready for it. I mean, you cannot run away, whatever
Definitely
the terms of engagement may be. But once you become a party to a legal case, at least you'll have to defend.
Yes. Ritesh ji, your thoughts on this?
I'll tell you, I was appointed as an advisor to the Abhyuday Cooperative Bank in September 23. Based on RBI's notification, the board was dissolved, administrator was appointed, I was one of the advisor. So erstwhile board of directors of Abhyuday Cooperative Bank filed a case in Bombay High Court against RBI and against all four of the advisors. So we became a party to that legal case. No doubt, RBI was first party, second was state government, and we four administrators and 3 advisors were other parties to the High Court. So I mean, we have to go to the High Court, we have to give our wakalatnama to appoint someone and start that process. So I mean, that's a part of it.
Ritesh ji.
Sir, like sir rightly mentioned that we are the party we can face. So I'll again go back to the basics and like in other audits we follow all our companies acts, right? Other evidence act, standards of auditing. So that is the safeguard for us. See, if we are party to a case, what is our scope? What is it which we are limited to? We have given a forensic audit report. We have highlighted certain points like red flags and all those things. So we are limited up to that only. So even if there is a situation when there is a litigation, so we, like I initially mentioned that our processes, our checklists, all those things, why these are important? Maybe we have a skilled staff, some quality resources are working on the assignment. Like you mentioned, sometimes it runs into weeks and months. We are already bleeding in terms of cost, but what documentation we have done. So that is where we can defend ourselves in the court of law, that this is the basis on all our, highlighting the red flags. It should be, linked back to certain act or regulatory requirement, or maybe even in case of commercial, like siphoning of funds also, we should be sticking. So language in our report, so it starts from the day one, like sir mentioned, right from the scope of work define what are my liabilities and all, then my preparatory work, what all measures I will follow, what checklist I will follow. So at that time only, reporting, drafting of the report and backing up with the document or evidence. So that is the crux when we are, again being questioned in the court of law.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, but you will be a part of a litigation. I mean, like for me, they went to Abhyuday Cooperative Board, went to High Court. High Court ruled in favor of RBI. Now they have gone to Supreme Court. So probably I will be again a one of the parties in the Supreme Court. So I mean, that process will go on. Once you take up this sort of assignments, we will have to be ready for this of challenges.
Mitesh ji, you also had certain practical instances like this. So if you'd want to, just highlight how you have dealt with them, because as everybody knows, this is a part and parcel of entering into this specific area of practice. So how have you dealt with that?
Yeah. Mahendra ji ने बताया कि he was made the second party to it. Let me share you an example where I was made the first party to the case. You know, so this was 2020, you know, and just on the happening of the, you know, just COVID khatam hua tha, we had all resumed the offices, and immediately this assignment had came where the lender had asked that you have to do a forensic audit based only on the basis of information available on the public domain. You don't have to ask any information from the borrower. You don't have to go into the scrutiny of anything. So I said, wow, this is good. मतलब timeline भी fix थी, 30 days में आपको ख़त्म करना था. And in 30 days, we were happy to release the report also. So I was happy कि यार पहला assignment जो timeline था और timeline में ख़त्म हो गया without any issues. So I was happy. And then suddenly the thing started. Because in this report I had qualified it that there was a circumstantial evidences based on which I had given an opinion. So on base of that, the lender issued the show cause notice to the borrower that please explain why your account should not be classified as fraud. And from that day, the history started. First, immediately I received an email threat from the borrower that you have issued so-and-so forensic audit report. Kindly withdraw your report, else you will face the music. You will be facing deep consequences which you will regret in your life. I thought maybe ऐसा तो कोई भी लिख देगा, ठीक है ना, मैंने ignore किया. Then he sent another email that if you don't withdraw after a week or something, then I will sue you for 100 crores rupees. ठीक है, अब मेरी फीस उसकी 1% भी नहीं थी, so 100 crores तो बहुत बड़ी बात है. Then he issued a legal notice to all my partners that so and so things have them. Your partners have issued a legal report. Kindly tell him to withdraw the report, else I'll make you party to the court. And simultaneously, what he did, he filed an appeal in the High Court for a stay against the show cause notice. Just see that against the stay of the show cause notice, the report is not qualified as fraud by the banker. It was just a show cause notice was issued, and they went for the stay application against that. He lost the stay. Against that stay also, he filed an appeal. He was a very powerful man then, and later I come to know that he had deep pockets. He had taken the top-notch, counsels, and immediately you think of the COVID period, how the courts were working, and immediately within 2 days he was getting the dates, for the hearing. So that you can imagine, so that reflects how powerful he was. But we didn't surrender to that. He was threatening us. He also filed a disciplinary case against the institute, against me, that the member has given a wrong report. Immediately I received a letter from the institute that so-and-so complaint has been filed. So I was at that time filing on all these front. I was facing a civil court that he had filed in his legal jurisdiction. There was a high court matter going around, and there was a disciplinary matter going around. So all those things came. But what helped I had drafted the report which saved me. Again, the legal opinion, we had to also take a lawyer, because definitely that person was very well, because then we again go back to the history. Then we came from that 1993, that person was known for all this kind of tactics. He used to take loans, he used to drag the banks to the, to the litigation. He will ensure that he will make all the bank and all the parties a soft target, and he will ensure that everybody is dragged to the court, and then he will try to, mend the situation according to his favor and get his things done. Similarly, he tried a similar attempt over here also, and accordingly he tried to vent, and ultimately we succeeded in our part, because the documental evidence what we had obtained from the public domain and based on which we had given the opinion. So we ultimately got a clean sheet from the institute. The case was dropped. Later on, that guy also made a settlement with the bank, and the bank also compromise, and he repaid the certain amount, and he withdrawn the case from the bank and us. But what the situation, made me more alert is, that we have to be very, very cautious. Again, in the first aspect, the gentleman asked about, the costing aspect, the fees which we quote. Now, this was not imaginable by any instance that, so much of litigation cost will drag you. And again, apart from litigation, so much of mental pressure, the harassment which was going around. Now that cannot be counted for, So those challenges are immensely involved in this audit. So whoever the friends, professional, please don't take it a challenge, get मेरे को experience लेना है इसके लिए let me, just as Ankush bhai mentioned that people face challenges, मुझे impanel होना है, let me take 4-5 audits. But एक ऐसा ऑडिट आपको ज़िंदगी भर याद करवा देगा, आपकी नानी याद करवा देगा, और आप छोड़ देंगे फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट. टच मी द थिंग्स वर दैट बैड दैट आपको प्रोफेशन छोड़ने का मन हो जाएगा. फॉरगेट अबाउट फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट, विल थिंक आई विल नॉट डू द CA प्रोफेशन. So these kind of situation will, so please do evaluate the things, don't take it in a light manner that, this is like a normal audit. Even now the statutory audit, I'll give you another right example of statutory audit where how the fraud comes into the picture. There is an example of the NAFRA has given the order in case of ZTV. You can go there and read on the public domain, the information is there. The statutory auditor had, given, what happened in the case was, there was a simple case, you will understand कि भाई इसमें fraud कहाँ पे आया. There was a fixed deposit created by ZTV and it was given as a collateral. And later on it was found that FDs were prematured and those credit were given to the related party transactions. There was a consortium, or I think there was one of the bank which was dealing with this. I think Yes Bank was the name. So since order is in the public domain, so I don't hesitate in giving the name. So Yes Bank was the name. So the Z management had given the instance to the bank to credit, and later on the funds were again brought back into the company, So everybody thought it was fine, right? And later on the NAFRA questioned the statutory auditor that why didn't you classify this transaction as fraud under section 143(12). Because the fraud was, what was the fraud element? The FD receipts were supposed to be credited to the company, but it was not credited to the company, but it went to the related party and then it came back to you. So it later on came back to you from maybe after some times. And in the meantime, what the auditor came to know, so this was somewhere in around the March ending. So when the April report was going around, the auditor has asked the management and management had given the reply which the auditor accepted it. That was his mistake, where he did not try to reach out to the bank that who gave you the instruction, because the management gave him the reply that it was not by us, it was the bank who has done the crediting part. And then they realized the bank that this was wrongly credited, and later on उन्होंने हमको पैसा वापस कर दिया. So auditor ने इसको थोड़ा सा lightly ले लिया और उसको management पे rely कर दिया. That was his mistake, and that is what the NAFRA caught के why didn't you reach out to the bank and why didn't you cross verify and get a confirmation from the bank कि this aspect was that. So all these little aspect, it एक आपको बहुत सारी चीज़ during the even the stat audit or forensic audit, whatever things you come across, make sure that there is a proper communication, make sure you document it well, because tomorrow we don't know how things will unfold, in what manner. Even the forensic audit which smoothly goes, 5 साल के बाद या 10 साल के बाद वो अगर if there are frauds more than 5 crores, then it has to be reported to the CBI by the if it is related to the public sector, and for the private sector if it is more than 1 crore it goes to the SFIO also. So you don't know tomorrow after 3-4 years आपने हो सकता है ये कंपनी या फर्म छोड़ के आप दूसरी फर्म में भी गए, tomorrow वो आपको पर्सनली नोटिस भी कर सकता है, आपको वहाँ पे विजिट के लिए बुलाएगा, एंड at that time how protected you are. So make sure that the firm is having a good amount of enough professional indemnity insurance. तो ये खास ले लेना. No, so that is what this Nafra is telling, but there was not something. So Yes Bank is telling it was the instruction given by the Z promoters to me. So that is what it is mentioned in the report. And bank instructed on the behalf of the borrower. मतलब जो आपका borrower ने instruction दिया, so bank accordingly acted. So it was ultimately that auditor has to see that who gave the instruction, why it was being credited to the, it didn't came back to the Z and why it went to the related party. That instruction he had to saw, तो अगर वो देख लेता और वो बैंक से समझ लेता तो शायद ये नौबत नहीं आती. So that order is there on the public domain, so one can go through it.
I'd like to just
Please,
add
please.
something like what Mitesh bhai mentioned. Same experience, I think all three of us, like he mentioned, you never know, your report is closed, everything is closed 4 years, 5 years down the line. Same the assignment which I was talking about, the forensic report was done, the haircut was taken, the settlement was done between the bank and the the management. The new management came in 3 years after that. The new management got a financial and commercial due diligence done on the same, past track records. There was a big 100-page report, and then he again came back to the forensic auditor. Why could you not find all these things? So again, the chain of events, again started and all those things. So definitely, it definitely has a sufficient amount of risk which we bear, and I don't know sir if you would be able to tell, is there is a timeline ke after 4 years you are free, agar baad mein kuch nikalta hai to aapke upar nahi aayega. That is something like you mentioned, like court cases keeps on going. So this is a risk, big risk which is associated to this.
Unfortunately, no statute of limitations for auditors.
Yes.
But before I just wind up, to all the panelists, anywhere that I go, I have one question, because my understanding is, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that a lot of our teething issues in terms of costs, in terms of timely delivery, in terms of expertise and everything else, are areas that can be solved by using the right technological tools. So before we wrap up the panel, if you can give one giveaway other than the normal, the idea and the other tools that we use, as to what do you feel is some tool that we can use that will, that people can take back, because people want to do forensic audits. They know the cost pressure, they know the legal pressure. So probably this is something I believe that can help them do it efficiently, as well as not bleed their pockets. Mahendra ji, if...
Yeah. See, generally, we as a chartered accountant, I think we are quite familiar or have become used to idea. But nowadays, the business intelligence, BI is available, SQLs are available. So I think we'll have to, if we have to venture into this area, I think we'll have to have hands-on experience or have a people who are expert in couple of tools. It cannot be on a single base, like, okay, people do use Excel, they work on Excel. But how authentic and how reliability, tomorrow you have to give the data based on Excel, the reliability is very poor. So you got to have the other SQL, BI or ideas. So you got to have a team of experts who are well versed with technologies which will save time and cost. But first of all, like you said, we'll have to invest in a technology.
Yes. Ritesh ji, your thoughts on this?
So when you talk about tools,
Yeah.
so like you already mentioned, idea, Power
Yeah.
BI sir has mentioned. So definitely tools are something which are flowing like anything
Yes.
in today's scenario. So a lot of open source AI also can be used. So like I'll just give an example. In our firm, we also have a dedicated team who are now writing codes even for our general internal audit, data analytics.
Brilliant.
So that is cost effective also. So definitely that requires certain, technical expertise, but that is the need of the hour. And not only for forensic audits, but we can, invest in these type of things for our overall practice.
Yes.
That will give some, common sense for that. and then we can, like you mentioned, how much we have invested in our business. That is something very important. So even open source AI also is being used. Like everybody is now using Chat GPT, Gemini, you know, in regular day to day. I don't think 4 or 5 years back, up to COVID also, nobody was using anything like this. Nowadays, a new article comes in and he gives a report in PowerPoint, and then I start asking, what does this mean? Means the risk implication. I'm just talking about the basics and the recommendations. So see, there is a limitation with the AI also. Naturally. Because when you talk about the, you know, understanding client's business, and then the personalized way of, you know, having that understanding and that what client actually needs, that, you know, the article may not know. So same in case of forensic audit also, you have to be very specific while reporting. Like sir mentioned, there are a lot of technology which we can use, but at the same time, I will again emphasize the documentation is the key, in especially in case of forensic audit. So that date, time stamping and all those things which should be there in case of forensic audit, that will keep the base of, you know, your audit for future also.
No, you know, definitely that is something we cannot compromise on. Mitesh ji, your thoughts on this?
So see, before taking a call on the use of software, so one has to see, you know, individually, let's say, you know, what is the practice size, you know, what you're looking at forensic audit. Are you looking at, you know, as a larger growth area in your frame? And accordingly, you should take a call, you know, how much you want to invest. If you have already an assignment in hand, definitely you can, it's easier to take a call, you know, that this is the cost opportunity, and maybe gradually down the line, you might take few more assignments similarly. Likewise, you can take a call, and nowadays, you know, there are different types of lot of softwares are available for each and each activity. Earlier, we were not having any, you know, software for email spoofing. One assignment came where in case of one of the mutual fund industry, you know, we had to investigate regarding whether there was any front running or whether such kind of information was being shared or not through email or WhatsApp. So then we had to use any specific software related to the email spoofing, and then we had to read. So those software was only, you know, taken on later on basis. So this is something which, you know, everything has a cost to it. So again, maintaining it is a cost. Like idea software, although it comes at institute earlier, it was available at just 50,000 rupees. But again, if I don't have an assignment, that 50,000 will appear a bigger to a smaller firm, you know, like, and again with a one license. So one has to evaluate what is the cost benefit in analysis. Advanced Excel no doubt has a lot of advanced feature. So initially, if you are having a smaller kind of assignment, even a Advanced Excel is a good tool. Even a Microsoft SS is a good tool to do analysis to a lot of aspect. You can got lot of reports are there where, you know, for public domain information, there is a companies like Corpository or Prob or Capital Line, where you can get a lot of public information within click, rather than, you know, you wasting a time on MCA and buying and getting a data. So within clicks, they are giving you the complete report along with, you know, whether they have filed the GST reports or not. So all those information are readily available at, you know, few hundreds of rupees. So you don't have to buy, you know, spend too much lakhs on that. Those are easily available information. So immediate at clicks. Likewise, many, you know, software, there are, you can tie up with some firms or companies and, you know, gradually share the infrastructures also. Because sometimes it may happen, you know, that you're not having round the clock this kind of audits, maybe, you know, once in a year or once in 2 years this year, and you want to use those facility. Maybe at my wish would be that, you know, at institute level, we should have that kind of laboratory where, you know, the members can come and use those kind of functions. You know, so for the benefit of all, maybe at, you know, you can have those kind of charges, and accordingly at institute level we can have an you know, it at affordable level, so that we can have the usage of advanced technology, and gradually it can be used not only for forensic audit but maybe for your internal audit or stat audit or something.
Thank you, Mitesh ji. Thank you, Mahendra ji. Thank you, Ritesh ji. I think from my end, I am done with as many questions I had. We've got a few minutes left, so if there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question, yes, sir. If you would like to ask a question, please feel free. Yeah. Sir, I can't get you very clearly. Can you just be a little louder? Okay.
before NPA हो सकता है क्या? So I'll tell you now. See, if everybody's heard of the situation now, Agency for Specialized Monitoring (ASM). That is what the bank has now implemented on the instruction of RBI, because obviously NPA is a post-mortem job. What we are doing is a post-mortem thing. That is what the bank is having the early warning signals about, where you have the early warning signals. Again, the ASM agency is also supposed to get into those aspects only, that where they, on a timely basis, they are not supposed to, again, they are not bloodhound. But again, yes, the reports is very much exhaustive, what the IBA has mentioned. And on those parameters, again, if you are reporting on regular basis to information, the bank is having good information, where kind of, what the borrower is going around. Again, it will not help to save the account, but yes, definitely at some junction, it will help to take a timely action, whether the bank wants to recall or, before enhancement, giving some extra facility, at least they will stop at this level. So I think at ASM and yes, at some private organization, this type of works are definitely happening. Sometimes they are, if kind of employee embezzlement or something related to even in the, risk management area, a lot of this kind of investigation or aspect are taking place where, prior information or wherein there is a kind of a internal sound alarm has been given by, and those kind of systems are there. But yes, the banks are not approaching so far at present before the NPA, because what will happen is, they don't want to spoil the relationship with the lender, borrower, initially, immediately. Because agar jaise
till
maine
account become
sound,
NPA,
because
right?
मैंने जैसे sound कर दिया ना, because borrower they know that practical के जैसे मैंने उसको बोल दिया, मेरे को ऐसा ऐसा, if he sounds, he will immediately classify it as NPA. वो पैसा जो देने वाला है वो भी नहीं देगा. So banker will always try to be practical and see के he try to do a lesser collateral damage and then he will act upon. Yeah. Not for the small account, sir. NPA होने के बाद तो सर monitoring नहीं होती ना. But once the account has become NPA, though they have to follow the another procedure ना सर. उसमें फिर monitoring तो फिर जो बैंक को करनी है, वहाँ पे फिर एजेंसी का काम नहीं है. Then once the account has turned NPA, the bank has to follow its own guidelines framed by the RBI and its own policy, where a fraud committee has to evaluate whether the account has to be marked red flag or not, and whether the forensic audit is required or not.
So
Yeah. नहीं, that is what I'm saying, sir. In case of NPA, there is no ASM monitoring. एक बार account मर गया सर, उसके बाद monitoring क्या करेंगे उसकी? On that line, what sir mentioned that कि इसकी मैं before सर का question ये था कि भाई NPA होने से पहले क्या बैंक ऐसा कुछ कर सकती है जिससे account को immediately उनके ध्यान में. So that's why I refer to ASM work.
ASM is one of part of that. It's pre-monitoring before.
Yeah. Should I take? No, so ASM is something where, there, as sir mentioned and IB has mentioned the limit, where southern, and in certain cases where bank feel it's not 250 CR, sometimes even for a 150 CR bank does get it whenever they feel that the credit rating has downgraded. So at that time, if the bank is not in a comfort zone, then also bank do orders for a ASM work done. So it's not in all the cases that 250 is the barrier and something only about that. Sometimes, many a times, the borrower जाके exemptions लेके आ जाता है कि मेरे को ASM नहीं करवाना है. So again, it is depend on the bank's policy. Many times the ASM जहाँ पे होता है, कुछ banks ऐसे बोलती है कि वो ASM agency stock report भी करके देगी. Sometimes some banks do get it separately done by independent auditor also. So again, it depends on bank to bank, sir.
Sir, from a lending perspective, I had a question. So, suppose any NBFC, MFI lending to microfinance clients or any particular NBFC, so what will be the practical approaches which they will like to implement to test whether the customer is actually liable, whether the customer is actually eligible for a particular loan? Because in this we can see the news for MFIs, microfinance, there is quite some stress. So how will they identify whether the how much the income of the customer is, how much leveraging is already there? Is there any particular criteria, any from the rating agency they can take help from? They can take help from the rating agencies. What will be the practical approaches the lenders can adopt? Because
Yeah, see, what you're talking about microfinance, basically one of the main criteria is KYC. KYC and microfinance is generally, banks don't do it. They appoint agencies, area-wise agencies. So they do the KYC. And as far as lending is concerned, like there were many were lending, but now RBI has come out with a circular limiting this lending. So, and as of now, the biggest challenge to all the banks and NBFCs is the default in MFI. So if you look at going to look at the June quarters, the maximum hit will be coming in a MFI lending because proper KYC was not done and over lending was done by various institutions to this particular MFI section. Measures, there are very limited measures like small finance banks or banks to meet the priority criteria, to meet that criteria, they have to do that microfinance lending. So they are doing it.
Below poverty line sort of customers up to 3 lakh. So जैसे हेयर रिटेल से का सर कैसे हम लोग करेंगे, इनकम कितना है? जैसे वो किराना का शॉप चला रहा है, किराना इज फिर भी ओके सर, जैसे टेलर हो गया, धोबी हो गया और फिर छोटा शॉप हो गया, पान बीड़ी शॉप हो गया, हाउ विल वी एक्चुअली वेरीफाई कितना इनकम हो सकता है, कितना कैश फ्लो हो सकता है these customers का?
See, as of practically in market, it's depending on the DSA, he does that. All banks, their deputy agencies, they verify कि पर डे का उसका इतना सेल होता है, वो बेस पे ही है. क्यों प्योर साइंटिफिक नहीं, या बैंक पासबुक या कैश कलेक्शन, दैट्स इट. कोई साइंटिफिक मेथड नहीं है और हो भी नहीं सकता है.
Sir, do we think that we need to make a representation if the borrower is not cooperative, that itself is a fraud?
Just before to your question, I'll just address to his question. See, nowadays MFIs, what have done, many of the NBFCs and banks, they have made partnership with a lot of fintech companies. You know, those fintech companies are helping to get the information. आपने मेपमा इंडिया करके कंपनी का नाम सुना है, which is listed, right? So मेपमा इंडिया हम लोग के दिमाग में वही था, वो सिर्फ जियो मैप देता है. The company is beyond that. You know, the company is not only giving the geo mapping done, they are also giving the geographical pattern of the area. They are giving a lot of data. Their data spending also is being tracked on based on that. So what is happening, all this information is now available, which was not there earlier. This helps to any MFI, you know, that particular, let's say a lot of MFIs, if you see, they are either based in a lot of, you know, the exposure with Odisha, West Bengal, you'll go to south down the line. So those areas you'll find a lot of MFIs are very much active. So where there is also on the sample basis, you do a portfolio analysis, and then on portfolio do a verification on the ground, where you appoint certain people and then you ground assessment, where a physical verification of a sample portfolio, आपका मान लीजिए अगर portfolio size है तो at least आपने एक village से आपने 50 samples उठा लिए, and you get to know. And in generally, you know, MFIs, the trend was, it was a, you know, joint liability loan or a self, where a group loan is there where each one is guaranteed. So definitely in those kind of scenario, you definitely know, you know, what is the kind of a cash inflow available with that person. So those information are there on based on which the assessment can be done. So this is something there, and where you know, the problem went wrong is somewhere the NBFC went on over lending. So that created an issue, and which lost, you know, spoiled the discipline. And even the RBI to some extent, I think there was some private rating agency which was doing the rating for those individual borrowers also, which was been stopped. So because of those information being now been not available, so again those even by default also there were many NBFC who went on again funding those kind of things. So again this led to the bubble, and which where now we are seeing it, the whole cycle has been stopped. Yes sir, I sorry just missed out your question. Yeah, can you repeat it? I hope I addressed your question. Yeah.
So if the borrower is not cooperative, the definition of the fraud can change, that if the borrower is not cooperative, that itself is considered as a fraud.
No sir, it is not in my view. See, you have to see and read what the RBI
No, I'm not saying about the guideline. I am much aware. Currently, it is not available.
Sir, again, that is what I'm saying, the approach itself. So again, this ये मेरा और आपका off the dice view हो सकता है. It is a biased view, I would say. But जब आप evidence proof करने को जाएंगे, so just because a person is not cooperative is not the circumstances where you can classify or you can say that this account is not a fraud or this is a fraud account.
So I'm saying the representation that if the out and out they are not providing any single piece of information can be considered as a fraud.
No, I think sir we have to go by what the law has mentioned. So again, forensic audit is beyond what ICI institute says. There is again a Bharatiya Nagrik Sanhita we have to follow. The IPC has now been replaced by the BNSS, and we have to see what are the guidelines over there, and whether obviously there is a you have to give a prejudice and a opportunity of hurt to each and every person. So before saying that, how can you say that just because you have not, I don't like your face, okay, मैं बोल दूँ यार आदमी बुरा है, ये नहीं हो सकता है sir. This is not the case in the forensic audit. You have to go and buy the forensic evidence. This can be one of the aspect where you can look into further digging into things. When you say that the borrower is not cooperative, definitely you will see okay भाई कुछ तो गड़बड़ है, and then you start digging it. You try to find the evidences which which justifies your call, where you say that this particular person is not cooperative or something. Anybody?
Do we have any more questions? Okay, so should we conclude the session then? Please.